Hey guys, how's it going? I got another comment on one of my videos. They were talking about the new Razer blade, and they wanted to have kind of like a comparison between the new Razer blade and also the Aero. So I was going to do that, and I actually made a little Excel spreadsheet that I'll show you guys. But I kind of broke down what I think are maybe the top 5 laptops out right now that are the best in terms of performance, mobility, and battery life or whatever. So the top 5 early 2018 laptops that the world has to offer, basically. So yeah, catch you on the next desktop shot when I record that. Bye. All right, what's going on, everybody? I just wanted to show you this like best of the best for the early 2018 laptops. Right now we have the Gigabyte 15X, we have the XPS 15, the Razer Blade for 2018, the Stealth Thin from MSI, and the Surface Book 2. So these are the 5 laptops that I thought were the best. For the most part, all the specs match up on this little graph that I made here in Excel. Most of the stuff is the same. There's a few exceptions. For example, on the Surface Book, obviously they have higher resolution. On the XPS, they have higher resolution. I tried to match up the drive capacities and as best I can also the CPU options, but obviously things like the Stealth Thin, they don't really have any purchase options that are exactly the same. So this price is actually for like an SSD, and the Razer Blade is that's actually the 512 gigabyte model, and the Surface Book was 512 gigabyte model. The Dell XPS was the 512 gigabyte model. So I think it was just the Stealth Thin that had kind of like a weird, a different configuration. So I couldn't match up the configuration for like just going to Amazon and finding the prices and then deciding, okay, this one has 16 gigabytes, this one has 16 gigabytes, and then matching them all up and making sure that the prices are the same. But so just take that into account. This has a smaller drive option, that's why it's also priced a little bit less. So yeah, so we'll just start from the top left side here. The CPUs. If we go for the CPUs, for the Gigabyte Aero 15X, it has the same CPU as all these other yellow ones. That's why they're color-coded yellow. So if they're yellow, it's a tie. If it's green, it's a winner. Red, it's a loser. So in this category, Dell loses. All the other ones are pretty much the same. This one, I guess this one also loses too. I don't know why I didn't do that. But yeah, so the Surface Book loses, and the XPS 15 loses. So these other two here and this guy, they win. So the Razer Blade, the Stealth Thin, and the Gigabyte Aero. So if we go to the GPU side of things, Aero has a 1070, Razer Blade has a 1070, MSI Stealth Thin has a 1070. So there's actually also a 1060 for the Surface Pro. So it's not quite as bad as the XPS, where, I mean, this is actually 4 gigabytes of memory, but it also has like a 4K screen. So with 4 gigabytes of memory for your video card, you're not going to be running any games at 4K, most likely. I mean, because the higher the resolution the games are, the more memory you're going to need. So yeah, 4 gigabytes for the Radeon RX Vega M. That kind of like crazy module where Intel and AMD kind of combined and made one together. So you can only run this at 1080p, but I made it the loser in this category, even though the 1070 has like 8 gigabytes of memory, so it's like twice as much capacity for resolution, game assets, and all that other type of stuff. So I just consider it to be the lesser of the options, basically. Not knocking AMD video cards or anything, but it's just it's not as powerful. As for the Surface Book, you know, obviously 1050, 1060 setups, they're not going to be as powerful as the 1070 Max-Q, which is kind of a shame, because if you look at the Surface Book, it's a really nice looking laptop. I like it a lot. That was one of my options. I like the color, no fingerprints. You know, it's one of the only ones out of all these laptops besides the Dell, which I didn't really consider the Dell at all, just because you know, I need CUDA, because I do some CUDA programming stuff, so I needed CUDA. So having the AMD GPU really wasn't an option for me. Maybe it is for you. It's still going to be able to play, you know, most simpler games that don't need to run at 4K, and so I mean, you can always still keep this as an option. Just for me, when I was looking at what kind of laptop I want, my specifications, this was not an option. And then when we went to the 1050 to 1060, it was like, well, for this price tag, why am I going to get the Surface Book 2 when I can get any one of these three? Well, at the time, this one wasn't available, so I could get any one of these two was my options. And even then, this option is still good, but we'll talk about it when we go down the list. But so I was only considering these two options just based on these this one tie alone. You know, as soon as I got to the CPU, GPU, I only had 2 more laptops left for my purposes. So yeah, so I was going back and forth between these two. And then when I went to the battery, on the battery life, we have a single winner, no tie this time, and that goes to the Gigabyte Aero 15X, which, you know, for me, the Surface Book was another close one. They advertised that it gets, you know, 17 hours of battery life, but the battery is actually smaller than the Gigabyte Aero, from what I was reading. So I was really surprised by that. So I'm not sure if there's something else going on. I tried to go to like teardown videos and search for all the different battery specs and all the different type of stuff, and I was only able to find a battery inside the tablet and a battery inside the, I guess, keyboard, and they only added up to 90 watt hours. So that's what I went for. So the Gigabyte Aero wins that one. As for the speakers, the speaker placement, you know, this might not seem like a big deal, and most of the time it's not. But if you're trying to like listen to music or something, maybe throw your laptop on the table while you cook some food or something like that, this can be kind of a bummer that the sound reverberates off the bottom of the table, and it just doesn't resonate very well. It doesn't get as loud as it could. So in this category, Razer Blade's the clear winner. They have the speaker placement right here on the sides, which is perfect. You know, one kind of small disadvantage from them doing this, obviously, is in terms of the Gigabyte Aero, is you don't have a 10 key. The Gigabyte Aero has a full keyboard. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Personally, I know some people don't like the 10 key. They don't care about a 10 key. But I've had it for so long, when I want to type numbers, I go to my 10 key. So, yeah. So it doesn't have it. Now, that's not a deal breaker for me. I would rather personally that the Gigabyte Aero have the speaker placement up top. That's why I say that, you know, this is obviously the winner in this category. So but then again, you know, a lot of people, they just use headphones. So that's not really that big of a deal either. As for the camera placement, you know, we all know the Gigabyte Aero, the Dell XPS 15, they're all down low. So the camera placement sucks. It's not very good. All the other laptops, they put their camera on the top. Obviously the Surface Book, it's also on the back of the tablet portion of the laptop, right? So you get two cameras in this case. So that's kind of like a tie or a win. I don't really know. I just call that a tie because, you know, I'm not going to be holding up a laptop, tablet trying to take a picture. I mean, I'll hold up my phone or something, try to take a picture, but, you know, that's one quick way to get made fun of in a picture. You're taking a picture, someone's going to end up taking a picture of you, making fun of you, trying to take a picture of somebody with a tablet, you know, or even the whole entire laptop. So, I don't know, maybe in some situations that's useful for somebody, but for me, it's not really useful. As for the chassis, now I made like a three-way tie here because it's also based on color, not just the materials used. So now the Gigabyte Aero has a dark grayish kind of exterior, and also on the interior it's kind of like I don't know what kind of, like, how to describe it, but the fingerprints don't get absorbed the same as other kind of smooth metals. It's kind of like a graded feeling. It's like kind of soft feeling. And I give it a tie just because it doesn't really attract fingerprints very well. Obviously the XPS is silver, and that's the best in my opinion, because you don't get all the dirt and the fingerprints and all that type of stuff. You go and you put your laptop down, people don't think you're a slob. You know, maybe some people they don't care about that, but personally, I like to keep my stuff clean. So yeah, the XPS and the Surface Book win because of that. Now, as far as the materials go themselves, probably the biggest loser is the Stealth Thin. It's just really, it's super flimsy. I mean, it's supposedly aluminum panels, so not a unibody. I think the XPS is a unibody, I think the Razer Blade's a unibody, and I think the Surface Book is a unibody. And I think the only two panel-based laptops are the Stealth Thin and maybe the Gigabyte Aero. I'm not sure on the Gigabyte Aero. The Gigabyte Aero might be a unibody as well, but I'm not really sure on that one because it's pretty strong and durable. And I was looking at people just press on the keyboard for the Stealth Thin, and it was so soft. So I think that's definitely a big problem. Probably one of the biggest problems for the Stealth, the MSI laptops in general. They're just, they make good products. I have an MSI motherboard, but their laptops are kind of too soft, even though they use thin metal. So now obviously the strongest materials used for a laptop, and from my experience, picking up a Surface Book, picking up the Razer Blade. The Razer Blade is really strong, and so is the Surface Book, and you know, the XPS 15. I assume it's really durable, although I haven't personally picked it up. From videos that I've seen of other people using it, it's a really strong laptop. So I would say all these laptops that are in these outer categories are really durable, strong laptops with probably, you know, the Surface Book and the Razer Blade being the strongest and the most like premium feeling, and then obviously the XPS 15 is probably coming in third, and the Aero's fourth, and then the MSI is probably the fifth. But you know, the Wintai Blues is based on fingerprints and just being strong enough, not like it's the best in terms of just the build quality. So it also fingerprints. Just looking at this picture, I got this from The Verge, and The Verge, they were playing with this laptop, and you can already tell it's got a ton of fingerprints on it. It already looks kind of brown just from fingerprints. You know, it's a black laptop, but as soon as you start touching it, it loses all of its cool appeal, and it has what I consider a really dorky looking green logo on the back. Now, I know some people like that, and if you're a kid, that's totally awesome. But for me, as an older man, right, I don't want to be walking around with a child's bright green serpent laptop, you know. So that's one thing I got to take into consideration that myself. It's because it looks kind of dorky. But as far as the cooling placement, obviously all of them are on the bottom, except the Surface Book. And, you know, people might say the Surface Book, you know, it has to do that. It has to have it on the sides because it's a tablet. Well, you know, I think the way that the Surface Book is designed, it has the best cooling method, in my opinion, because it's got no fan on the bottom, no intake fans on the bottom. You can put it anywhere. You can put it on your lap, you can put it on a pillow, you can put it on your bed, and it's not going to intake any dust. It's not going to, you know, overheat because it's not being able to draw enough air. Now, thermal throttling aside, I know each laptop, every one of these laptops is going to have to thermal throttle. Now, where does it reach its peak, and, you know, which one is better than the other? That's, you know, an entirely different video. And that's a big in-depth topic you'd have to get into. But this is just in terms of convenience of having to worry about where you put your laptop. So that's what I considered. And to me, the Surface Book is the winner in this category, because all the other ones have fans on the bottom that suck air in. So that's a big sucky thing that I think all these other laptops need to overcome. Surface Book, it overcame it just because it had to, because it's a tablet, but that's kind of like a bonus in my mind compared to the others. So that's why I said it's the winner. The other one's tied, not exactly losers, but yeah. As far as the screen goes, I didn't get too in depth in the screen. Most of the screens are all, you know, pretty nice, either 4K or 1080p, 144 hertz. Now, to me, I don't want a 4K screen. A 4K screen does nothing but waste my battery. Now, if you're doing some kind of photo work or video work or something where you need 4K, I don't know why you would, but if you do, the Dell XPS has one. I think the Gigabyte Aero has one. I think most of these have a 4K option, but the ones that lost, they don't have a 1080p option. So that's why they lost for me, because I want 144 hertz, I want a fast refresh rate. I don't want to be looking at a screen and have it not refresh fast enough. I want it, motions to be nice and smooth. So basically, the Surface Book lost for me, and the XPS 15 lost for me. So they don't have a 1080p option. I want that 1080p option because when I'm on the go, I want just enough pixels for a 15.6 inch screen, which 1080p to me is perfectly fine. It looks great. Maybe sometime in the future, you know, maybe they work out the technology with batteries and it gets better or something like that. Maybe I might change my mind. But for right now, with the technology we have, 1080p is perfect to me. And 144 hertz, that's awesome. And I tried to look up the specs for like the response time, and most of them are around 5 to 7 milliseconds. So I couldn't really test that. I know the Aero, they have this thing called Pantone. They calibrate the screen for color accuracy before they send it out, and I think the Razer Blade does that, and I think the Surface Books does something similar to those as well. Don't quote me on that. I didn't really look into that too deeply, but they have it. So yeah. As far as Thunderbolt 3, I know I said in my previous video that the reason why I wasn't interested in the 15 XPS 15 was because it didn't have a by 4 Thunderbolt 3 port. Well, their new model, it actually does. They improved it. So when they made it like a convertible, like it flips back, they upgraded the design, and so now finally, after years of them advertising Thunderbolt 3 with 40 gigabits per second, which it actually could only do 20 gigabits per second, they finally fixed it. So to me, that's really false advertising. I don't know why they were allowed to get away with that, but yeah. Anyway, all of them except for the Surface Book 2 have Thunderbolt 3 4 lanes. Now, in terms of performance, don't quote me, I don't know. I do think that Gigabyte, MSI, and Razer, they all have an eGPU dock, I believe. I know for sure Gigabyte does and Razer does, but I'm not sure. I think I saw one for MSI, but I'm not sure. It might have been like a custom one where you have to like plug it into the back of the laptop, so don't quote me on that. But I'm pretty sure it's going to work anyway. Thunderbolt 3 is a standard, and yeah, it should work on all of them. So if you wanted to get an eGPU in the future, you know, in the 1180s or, you know, 2080s or whatever it's going to be next, when those come out, it's going to be you're going to be able to upgrade, play all the newest games, and the 6-core CPU is going to have some future room for growth, in my opinion. And then that's when we go to the NVMe drive, and this one's a little tricky because I didn't get super in depth on it, but just from looking at what they have to offer, I tried to look at teardowns for all the different laptops and see what ports were available, and that's, you know, it should be something that's on all the spec sheets, but sometimes it's not. The worst spec sheet, in my opinion, was from Microsoft Surface Book. Their spec sheet is horrible, and I'm guessing just because they're assuming no one's ever going to tear this thing apart. So I had to look at iFixit's website and all this different type of stuff. But anyway, for the Gigabyte Aero, they advertise as you can put 2 NVMe drives in it, and you can even put them in RAID. So yeah, to me that one, obvious winner. Also the Stealth Thin, I know you can put like an SSD drive in there, and then you can also have an NVMe drive. I'm pretty sure. So when I was looking at configurations on like iBuyPower and CyberPower and all these different websites, they had those options. So yeah. So I'm not sure how fast MSI's drive ports are. I know one of them's probably PCIe Gen 3, you know, really fast, but I'm not sure about the other one. So I just made it a tie anyways, but I haven't tested the MSI laptop, so I didn't know for sure. But I knew for sure for the Gigabyte Aero. So to me, that gave me a checkpoint for the Gigabyte Aero. As for the other ones, I tried to look into all of them. The Microsoft Surface Book 2, I'm pretty sure it only has one. The Dell XPS 15, I'm pretty sure it only has one. I think it might be hard to upgrade it, pretty sure. And then for the Razer Blade, I think you can expand it. It only has one port, and the port can do up to 2 terabytes. So it didn't have any, which is actually going on to our next row here, the upgradability row. Razer, they improved their kind of lock-in mentality. Before, they had their RAM soldered to the board, and you couldn't upgrade it. And I know now their storage and also the RAM, you can upgrade it. So that's good. Finally, they're doing what everybody else was already doing, for the most part. But that's cool. At least the industry is moving in the right direction. As for the Gigabyte Aero, yes, easily you can upgrade it. You just pop open the back and you can get access to everything. The XPS 15, I'm pretty sure you can't upgrade it. For the Razer Blade, yes, you can. I think it's pretty easy to get to now, whereas before it was harder and you couldn't upgrade it anyway. The Stealth Thin, yes, you can, but it's really hard to get to. I think it's buried underneath stuff and you have to like take a bunch of stuff apart. Surface Book, obviously, they don't want you to upgrade it. What you buy is what you get. And that's probably why they have the giant price tag, because they're just trying to get people who want something that looks really pretty. And, you know, it does look really nice. I do like the look of it. As for the bezel size, I didn't get too in-depth in it because now you're just getting into like the millimeters, like one's like 0.03 millimeters difference. So I just said, you know, all the small bezels now, they're all about the same, about 5 millimeters or less. And the only one who has larger was the Surface Book. So I just made it a tie for all of them. I'm not going to split hairs that much because I don't really care. I just wanted the small bezels because I wanted that 15.6 inch screen. So if they have the 15.6 inch screen, then that's good for me. That's all I care about. As for the thinness, the clear winner is the Dell XPS 15, which, as it turns out, also has the least powerful everything else. So kind of makes sense it can be so thin because it's not very powerful. It doesn't have a powerful video card. In terms of its closest competitor, doesn't have as big of a battery, still has the nose camera. I mean, all that stuff. There's lots of reasons why, and this is the laptop at its thickest point. The Dell XPS 15 does get skinnier than 16 millimeters at its thinnest point, but this is just at all the laptops at their thickest point, and that's why the Surface Book is 23 millimeters, because it's like obviously got that big gap where its hinges at. So yeah, the two other ones, the Razer Blade, the MSI Stealth Thin, the Aero 15X, all those laptops, they're all about the same. The Aero actually is a little bit thicker, but you know, out of all my laptops, I have a MacBook Air, and MacBook Air is like this little flimsy thing, right? It's super durable, but I'm not a wuss, and I don't really care if my laptop's heavier, right? As long as it's thin, because for me it just fits in better. But if the laptop's like 5 pounds or something, I don't really care. I don't care if it's 10 pounds, as long as it's got all the power that I need and a huge battery. And yeah, so as far as the warranty goes, this is where the Aero surprisingly has a better warranty. When I got the box and looked at all the warranty information, it has a 2-year manufacturer warranty. And Razer, they kind of have like a 1-year one, but then you can like extend it or something like that. So I just said it's a 1-year warranty, because it's kind of weird. Like, why do I have to extend it? Why isn't it just 2 years automatically? But you know, whatever. I didn't get too in depth into it because I don't want to read all their legalese stuff. But basically, most of the laptops, they protect essential parts. A lot of them, they don't protect the battery for some reason. So yeah, something to keep in mind. Although the batteries usually aren't that expensive, you can probably replace it yourself. Just depends on how easy it is to get to. And then that's where we come to price. And I didn't exactly put a winner on the price category, just because on the price, all the configurations aren't exactly the same. So for the Surface Book, obviously it doesn't have the same components, but it's the highest price. So to me, that's a big fat loss for the Surface Book. It's less powerful. It costs way more, not just a little bit more, way more, like $500, $600, $700 more than other laptops. I mean, the closest one to it is the Razer Blade, and it has a way better GPU. Now granted, it has a less powerful, for the model that I'm looking at, has a less powerful screen, and it has less battery life. So why is the Razer Blade still so expensive? I don't know. It shouldn't be, in my opinion, but you know, they're trying to market their stuff as being premium. So that's what you get. When they market their stuff as premium, they have to pay all the advertisers, they have to do all those extra things to get their branding out there. And sometimes that branding is because it's actually good. But in this case, Razer is playing catch up this time around. All the other laptops, they came out with their thin bezels, they came out with big batteries, they came out with Max-Q design GPUs, and this year, just this year, maybe Razer's going to make a good year for their next refresh. But this time around, Razer was playing catch up, and they're saying $2,600 for something that you can get for still a good design laptop for $23. So, and you get a bigger battery. So that's when you go to the Gigabyte Aero, and it's got a big battery, same components for the most part in its entirety, and maybe it's like 1 millimeter thicker, you know. And then the XPS 15, it's like the same price almost. It is the same price as the Stealth Thin, which in comparison to the Aero, it's only $100 difference, but you get about 12 hours more battery, and it's just, to me, seems like it's designed better, and you get a better warranty. So if it was between Aero and the Stealth Thin is just not, it's not designed quite as well. It's still decent, don't get me wrong, it's still decent, but the Aero is just everything besides the dang camera on the Aero and the speaker placement, and those are the two main ones need to be fixed. And to me, it'd be really awesome if they fix the fans placement and maybe put. I mean, I have ideas about how they could fix the fan placement, but I'll leave that out of here. So if we just go through the bottom, tally up the totals for ties, wins, losses, all that different type of stuff. I think one of these was a tie when it was supposed to be a loss. To change that. So tally all these up. Then obviously we have a winner, which is, for me, the Gigabyte Aero. So now, if you had say, you had extra money, and you knew you were going to put a skin on, if you had all the same considerations as me, and you were going to put a skin on the Razer Blade, and you didn't need a 10 key, and you didn't care about the 14 watt-hour extra battery life, and you didn't care that you're going to pay more, then the Razer Blade is a great laptop. But for me, I don't care where the camera is for the webcam. I hardly ever use a webcam. If I do use a webcam, I don't care. They can look up my nose. When I'm talking, I'll look down like this. It's not going to be a big deal. But yeah, if you don't care, if you want to save maybe an extra $100, $200, and also get, like, I think the MSI one has the MSI Stealth Thin. they also have a hard drive that you can put in the computer. So if you need that extra storage space for, you know, whatever reason, you don't want to spend that extra cash for NVMe SSD, you know, maybe that's a good one, because you're going to get extra options for storage that's going to cost a lot less, and the laptop is also going to cost less. So yeah, it's a good option if you're on a budget but still want a very premium product, because I think it's like on the low side in terms of build quality, but they really put the really good components and it's still nice and thin. So it's a pretty nice laptop. That's why I don't want to put it below XPS 15, but I kind of think it, in terms of only build quality, it's below the XPS 15, but in terms of all the other components, it's better. So yeah, so this is what I thought about. These are my, you know, top 5 early 2018 best laptops. You know, if you have any other thing you want to talk about, or you know, suggestions, maybe something you find out, let me know. But yeah, it's Ryan out.